Hi everybody, and very welcome to Mentour, yet another video podcast. As always, I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic out there. Today we're going to be talking about all of those passengers who have boarded aircrafts to never ever really get off the aircraft. We're going to be talking about all of those who didn't let death stop them from complaining. This is plain spooky. So we're going to start today's stories from airports. Airports seems to be specifically haunted places, especially when there's been any kind of major air disaster surrounding them. And a good example of that is Chicago's airport, O'Hare, where the worst ever air accident in the American history happened back in 1979 with an American Airlines flight 191. A DC-10 taxied out for a completely normal takeoff, and during the takeoff roll, the left number one engine got loose from the wing, careered off the wing, and ripped some of the wing with it and destroyed parts of the hydraulic system. Now the flight crew did whatever they could to try to salvage the stricken bird, but there was nothing they could do. And shortly after takeoff, the DC-10 plummeted into a nearby field, killing all 271 passengers and crew on board. Now, it didn't take long after the horrible accident for strange things to start to happen. There were reports from cars driving past the accident site who said that they could see shadowy figures and weird light phenomenon going out on this field. The local police obviously thought that there was tourists out looking for macabre souvenirs, so they went over there, and every time that there was one of these reports, the place was completely empty. There was no sign of anyone ever being there. Now this wasn't all, but the inhabitants of a close-by trailer parks said that just after the accident, they started to hear strange noises from the accident sites, including screams and howls and complaints coming from the site. Now that got just worse and worse over the weeks after the accident, where towards the end there was people moving around, or they said that they could hear people moving around out on the porches, and doorknobs were moving and doors were shaking. And some of them even said that they met people when they were out walking around, people who smelled like gasoline, asking about connecting flights and where their luggage was. And to this day, these ghostly apparitions are still appearing around the accident site. Now, other airports that have been infested with ghostly apparitions include the United Kingdom's major airport, London Heathrow, where there's also been accidents. And one of them was a Belgian Air DC-3 that crashed in dense fog, actually crashed onto the runway. And even when the rescue workers were still working, trying to gather up deceased and body parts from the runway, a young man appeared out of the fog asking for his briefcase. And in front of the stunned rescue workers, he just vanished into thin air. Now this apparition has then been named Man with the Briefcase, because he has been seen many, many times walking around aimlessly out on either the runway or the aprons on Heathrow. And there was a very famous incident back in 1971 where air traffic control actually called in the local police because they saw a passenger walking around out on the tarmac and onto one of the runways. And when the police came there, they couldn't find anything. They couldn't see anything. But air traffic control still said that they could see the man walking just in front of the police. But they never found anything. Now, other airports that have also been infested includes airports that haven't had any accident on them, like the main Bangkok airport, Suvarnabhumi. airport, where it was actually opened very recently, back in 2005, but it was constructed on top of an old cemetery, and that never seems to be a very good idea. Even as the airport was being constructed, construction workers was complaining about being shoved around by unseen forces, and there were several accidents, including deadly accidents, where they said that things had been moved out of the way and things were basically being disturbed. They were also complaining about hearing screams and complaints from the angry spirits that was buried under the tarmac. It got so bad that the authorities in Thailand sent in 99 monks to try to cleanse the place, but it never really worked. On one famous incident, a security officer that was looking for explosive got possessed by an angry spirit, and who said that he required a shrine to be built on the place where he was standing. And after that, the authorities actually did build, I think, up 8 shrines inside of the airport, and you can see them today. But the ghost wouldn't go anywhere. There are still reports about ghosts moving around, music starting to play out of nowhere. And one specific ghost is a ghost of a young woman holding a child that appears in front of speeding cars on the nearby roads, causing them to swerve off the road. Now, us actually in the airline business, flying, all of us in all different airlines have that one aircraft that behaves a little bit strangely. And in the case of Sterling Airlines in Denmark, they had one 737-800 called the Yellow One, where some cleaning workers refused to enter the aircraft at night, complaining that they were being watched and that things were happening that shouldn't happen, like they were hearing noises and toilets were being flushed when there was no one there. Also, passengers were complaining and saying that they could hear footsteps on top of the roof of the aircraft as it was taxiing out to the runway. There's also been reports of an old lady walking through the middle aisle, staring aimlessly out into the void with reddish eyes. And when asked about this old lady, the crew just shrugged and said that there was no such old lady on board. Even in my airline, we used to fly the 737-200, and the 200s that we had, some of them were brought in from airlines flying down in Africa. And in one of the 200s, a captain flying for an African airline had been shot dead in the cockpit, and you could still see the patched up bullet holes in the cockpit where it had happened. And that specific aircraft, we had cabin crew who refused to fly it. Overhead bins were open by themselves. They would feel a creepy feeling as they were standing in the back galley, just like someone was watching them. And once again, other things would happen. Things would move, toilets would flush, coffee makers would start working by themselves. So, as you can see, guys, even though the airline business is full of highly technological, fantastic machines, it doesn't seem to be immune to the occult. Have a happy Halloween, everybody, and I'll see you next time.